The first time I realized my wife might be dangerous, she was standing barefoot in our kitchen, making grilled cheese for my 8-year-old son. 10 minutes earlier, a woman from a medical lab had called my private number and asked whether I could speak without my wife hearing. I almost hung up because it sounded like a scam. Then she read my wife's full name, date of birth, and the identification number from a blood donation she'd made 6 days earlier. The problem was, according to the woman, that name didn't belong to my wife. She told me not to confront her. She told me not to eat or drink anything my wife prepared. Then she asked whether I'd been experiencing headaches, nausea, muscle weakness, or unusual fatigue. I'd had all four for almost 3 months. I was still trying to process that when my wife, Claire, walked into my office carrying a mug of coffee. Figured you could use this. She set it beside my keyboard and kissed my forehead. I looked at the coffee, then at her. She smiled exactly the way she'd smiled every morning for 6 years. Behind her, my son yelled that his sandwich was burning. Claire laughed and hurried back toward the kitchen. I waited until she was gone. Then I poured the coffee into an empty water bottle, screwed on the cap, and hid it in my desk, because the woman on the phone had given me one final piece of advice. Mr. Lawson, whatever you do, act normal. Federal investigators are coming tomorrow morning. Until then, she cannot know that we found her. My name is Eric Lawson. I was 38 then, living outside Raleigh, North Carolina, with Claire and my son Noah. I owned a network security company that mostly worked with regional banks, logistics companies, and a few government contractors. I wasn't insanely wealthy, but I'd done well. The company had grown from 4 employees working above an auto parts store to 43 people and offices in 2 states. Claire came into my life when Noah was almost due. His biological mother, Melissa, had died from complications after surgery when he was 11 months old. For a while, it was just Noah and me. Then I met Claire at a charity event through a client. She was patient with him. Never pushed the mom thing. She'd sit on the floor, building wooden train tracks for an hour without checking her phone. When we married 2 years later, Noah started calling her Mom on his own. That mattered to me more than anything, which is probably why I ignored things I would have noticed in anyone else. Claire had almost no family. She said her mother died when she was 17, and her father disappeared years before that. No siblings, no cousins she spoke to, very little social media. Whenever I asked about childhood photographs, she said most had been lost when her mother's storage unit was auctioned. Sad story. Also convenient. At the time, I never thought of it that way. 6 days before the lab called me, Claire announced she wanted to donate blood. That alone was strange. She hated needles. I'd once watched her nearly walk out of a dentist's office because they mentioned drawing blood before a procedure. But that Saturday, she came downstairs already dressed and told me there was a blood drive at Wake County Medical Center. "Oh, negative," she said. "They always need it." I looked up from making Noah scrambled eggs. "Since when are you brave around needles?" She smiled. "People change?" Noah asked if he could go. Claire answered too quickly. "No," then softened it. "You and Dad have soccer." We did. I didn't think much about it. She left around 11 and returned shortly before 3. There was a small bandage inside her elbow. Everything looked normal. That night wasn't. Around 1 in the morning, I woke because Claire wasn't beside me. I heard her voice from the bathroom. Quiet. I couldn't make out everything. Only pieces. Yes. A pause. "They took it." Another pause. "No. Eric doesn't know." Then something that made me sit up. "You said once they process it, we'll know for sure." I got out of bed. By the time I reached the bathroom, The toilet flushed. Claire opened the door. She looked surprised. You okay? Bathroom. She kissed my shoulder as she passed. Sorry. Didn't mean to wake you. I stood there, wondering who she'd been talking to. Then I told myself it could have been anything. That sentence would embarrass me later. After the lab call, I didn't go to the police immediately. The woman had already told me federal investigators were involved. Instead, I called my attorney, Marcus Reed. Marcus had represented my company for 9 years. He was also one of the few people I trusted not to panic for me. I gave him the basics. He stayed quiet until I finished, then said, Where's Noah? At school. Keep him there. What? Authorize somebody else to pick him up. Marcus, Eric, you have a medical professional telling you your wife is using a false identity and possibly exposing you to something toxic. We don't improvise. That got through. I called Noah's school and authorized my sister, Rachel, to collect him. Then I told Rachel there'd been a security issue at my company and asked her to keep Noah overnight. She knew I was lying. Thankfully, she didn't argue. At 2:15, Marcus arrived. Claire was supposedly grocery shopping. I showed him the bottle containing the coffee. He didn't touch it. Keep it. Obviously. No, don't open it. Don't test it yourself. Don't start playing detective with chemicals. Wasn't planning to. You own a cybersecurity company. Men like you always think expertise transfers. I would have been offended if you weren't correct. Then the doorbell rang. A woman stood outside. Mid-40s, dark suit. No lab coat this time. She showed identification through the camera. Special Agent Dana Whitmore, FBI. That was the moment the situation stopped feeling like a misunderstanding. Dana came inside with another agent named Paul Chen. She placed a thin folder on my dining table. Before we start, Mr. Lawson, is your wife expected home? Maybe an hour. Then we'll be brief. She opened the folder. The first photograph showed a woman about 10 years younger. Dark hair instead of Claire's current blonde, thinner, but the face was unmistakable. My wife. Her name is Natalie Voss. I stared at the photograph. No. Dana didn't argue. She turned the page. Different driver's license, different state. Same woman, Natalie Voss. Then another. Megan Price. Then another. Claire Hart. The name I'd married. How many identities? We've confirmed 4. What did she do? Dana looked at Paul before answering. Natalie Voss disappeared 7 years ago during an investigation into a financial fraud organization operating between Georgia and Florida. Fraud? Identity theft, insurance schemes, estate fraud. That sounded bad. Not yet terrifying. Then Dana slid another photograph toward me. A man in his early 40s. Who is that? Thomas Avery. Never seen him. He died in Savannah 9 years ago. Why are you showing me? Because Natalie Voss was living with him when he died. I looked at her. What happened? Cardiac failure. Okay. Thomas was 42. The next photograph showed another man. Stephen Cole, Jacksonville, age 46. I already knew what she was going to say. He died too. Yes. When? 7 years ago. Was Claire with him? Under the name Megan Price. My mouth went dry. How? Officially? Stroke. Dana closed the folder halfway. Both men had substantial life insurance and assets. In both cases, the woman disappeared shortly after estate settlement. I thought about my own insurance. My company. Our house. Investment accounts. Then I remembered the lab woman's questions. Headaches, nausea, weakness, fatigue. What was in her blood? Dana didn't answer directly. The donation triggered an identity alert. Further testing produced another concern. What concern? Exposure to a heavy metal compound. Marcus leaned forward. Exposure to her? Dana looked at me. Potentially repeated low-level exposure. I understood before she finished. If she's handling it, she may have trace levels herself. I looked toward the kitchen. 6 years of dinners, coffee, vitamins. Claire occasionally handed me when I was working late. Am I being poisoned? We don't know yet. But you think it's possible? Yes. I wanted to ask 100 questions. Only one came out. What about Noah? Dana's expression changed. Has he had symptoms? No. Any unexplained illness? No. Does your wife prepare most of his meals? Yes. That answer scared me more than everything else combined. Dana told me Rachel should take Noah to an emergency department without Claire knowing. Blood and urine testing immediately. I called Rachel. This time I told her enough that she stopped asking questions. Then Paul asked about finances. Does Claire have access? Personal accounts, yes. Business? Limited. Passwords? No. Dana gave me a look. I almost laughed. I'm serious. My company literally trains people not to share credentials. Could she access your devices? At home? Yes. I thought about it. My office computer is locked. Always? That was a better question. No. We went upstairs. My home office looked exactly as I'd left it. Paul didn't touch anything. He photographed the room. Then I noticed something under my desk. A tiny black plastic piece. I'd seen enough hardware to recognize it. A USB receiver. Not mine. Paul crouched beside it. Don't touch that. I didn't. He called their technical team. 20 minutes later, we learned it belonged to a wireless keylogging device hidden behind my desktop tower. Someone had potentially been recording everything I typed. Passwords, emails, client credentials, financial logins. Claire hadn't just been living with me. She'd been collecting access. Then my phone buzzed. Claire, leaving the store now. Want me to grab Ty tonight? I showed Dana. How long until she's here? 20 minutes. The agents exchanged a look. We're leaving. I stared at her. You're leaving me here with her. We don't have an arrest warrant yet. That's comforting. We also don't want her disappearing before we understand who she's communicating with. Marcus didn't like that. Neither did I. But Dana gave me a direct instruction. Do not confront her. Don't eat anything she prepares. Don't mention us. And tonight? Find a reason to sleep somewhere else. I nodded. Then she added, one more thing. She opened the folder again. There was a surveillance photograph I hadn't seen. Claire stood outside a gas station talking to a man. Tall, gray jacket, maybe 50. Recognize him? No. His name is Victor Sloan. What does he do? Dana held my eyes. He helped run the organization Natalie disappeared from 7 years ago. I looked at the photograph. When was this taken? Yesterday. My stomach tightened. Where? 3 miles from your house. Before I could answer, my security app chimed. Garage door opening. Claire was home. Dana closed the folder. Marcus stood. Then another notification appeared. Motion detected at the side gate. I opened the camera. Claire was walking in from the garage carrying grocery bags. But somebody else was coming through the gate. Victor Sloan. And unlike Claire, he wasn't carrying groceries. Dana saw Victor on the camera and immediately changed her mind about leaving. Where does that gate lead? Back patio, kitchen door. Does he have a key? I have no idea. Paul was already on his phone. Marcus moved away from the windows. Dana pointed at me. Stay here. Then Claire's voice came from downstairs. Eric? Normal voice. Same voice she'd used every day for 6 years. I'm home. Dana and Paul moved into the hallway, where Claire couldn't see them from the stairs. I walked downstairs. I know that sounds stupid, but the agents wanted to know why Victor was there. And if Claire walked upstairs and found 2 federal agents outside our bedroom, the conversation was going to become pretty short. She was putting groceries on the counter. "Where's Noah?" "Rachel picked him up." Claire stopped. "Why?" "She wanted him overnight." "On a school night?" I shrugged. "Apparently he's helping her build some ridiculous Lego thing." Claire studied me. That little pause was different now that I knew what to look for. She wasn't reacting. She was calculating. Then the kitchen door opened. Victor walked in. No knock. No hesitation. Like he'd been there before. Claire spun around. "What are you doing?" Victor looked at me, then back at her. "We need to talk." Her face changed. "Not much. Enough. Eric, this is Victor." He introduced himself before she could. "Old friend of Claire's." He held out his hand. I didn't take it. "Didn't know Claire had old friends." Victor smiled. "We've known each other a long time." "I can tell." Claire stepped between us. Victor was just leaving. "No." He looked directly at her. "We have a problem." She stared at him. "Not here. Especially here." I could hear Dana moving upstairs. Victor couldn't. Then he said something that confirmed almost everything. "The hospital flagged a sample." Claire went completely still. "So did I." Victor noticed my expression. "That was the mistake." "You told him." "No," Claire said quickly. He looked at me again. I didn't need to perform confusion anymore. He'd already seen too much. Victor reached inside his jacket. Dana came down the stairs with her weapon drawn. "FBI. Hands where I can see them." Victor froze. Claire turned toward me. Not toward Dana. Me. There was no fear on her face at first, just disbelief. "You knew." I didn't answer. Paul appeared behind Dana. Victor slowly raised his hands. Claire didn't move. "Hands up," Dana told her. Claire looked around the kitchen, then finally raised them. For about 30 seconds, I thought it was over. It wasn't even close. Victor had no weapon. What he'd reached for was a phone. Police detained both of them while agents secured the house. But Claire wasn't arrested. Neither was Victor. Not that night. Dana explained it to me in the driveway, while officers photographed the kitchen. "We need evidence connecting her to a specific crime." "You have false identities." "Potentially. You have dead husbands, former partners, and suspicious deaths aren't murder convictions. You found a keylogger in my office. We haven't established who installed it. And the poison? We need your test results." I looked toward the house. Claire was sitting in our dining room with an attorney she'd somehow managed to reach within 40 minutes. Victor had his own lawyer coming. These weren't people experiencing their first legal emergency. What happens now? You don't stay here. That part was easy. Rachel took Noah to Duke University Hospital. I met them there. He was annoyed more than scared. Why are they taking more blood? Doctors want to make sure you're healthy. I am healthy. I know. Then why? 8-year-olds are surprisingly effective cross-examiners? Because I've been feeling sick. And they want to make sure you didn't get exposed to the same thing? That answer satisfied him for about 12 seconds. Is Mom sick? I looked at Rachel. She looked away. We're figuring that out. Noah frowned. Can I call her? Not tonight. Why? I didn't have an answer that wouldn't destroy his life in a hospital waiting room, so I said, because I need you to trust me tonight. He didn't like it, but he nodded. My results came back first. Elevated arsenic. Not enough to put me in immediate organ failure. Enough that the doctor stopped treating my symptoms as stress. The estimated exposure had been happening for months, maybe longer. Noah's levels were normal. I sat in the hallway after hearing that and stared at the floor for a while. That was the first good thing I'd heard all day. Whatever Claire had been doing, she hadn't been poisoning Noah. At least not yet. The coffee I'd saved was tested the next morning. It contained arsenic. Far more than what would have occurred accidentally. That gave Dana what she needed. Agents returned to the house with a warrant. Claire was gone. Her attorney claimed he didn't know where she was. Victor was gone too. The FBI had been monitoring his known vehicle. He'd abandoned it in a parking garage downtown. I wasn't surprised. Dana was furious anyway. The search of our house lasted almost 11 hours. They found nothing obvious in the kitchen. No jar labeled poison, which would have been convenient. What they did find was more interesting. Behind the removable panel beneath Claire's bathroom sink was a waterproof pouch. Inside, $18,000 cash, 2 driver's licenses, 1 passport, 3 prepaid phones, and a small notebook. Dana called me to the field office that evening. She placed photographs of the notebook pages in front of me. Most looked like financial notes, dates, amounts, account names. Then I saw my name. Eric, 6.4, current / 11 to 13, projected. What does that mean? Dana pointed at another page. Thomas, 2.1, Stephen, 3.8, the dead men. Their approximate estate values. My stomach tightened. She was tracking what I was worth. Looks that way. What does projected mean? We're still working on that. I already had a theory. My company. We were negotiating an acquisition. Very few people knew. If the deal closed, my personal payout would have been somewhere between 11 and 13 million. Exactly the number in Claire's notebook. How did she know? Dana looked at me. The keylogger. I leaned back. She hadn't stayed with me longer because she'd fallen in love. She'd stayed because my value kept increasing. 1 prepaid phone changed the investigation. Most messages had been deleted. The forensic team recovered fragments. Claire to Victor. He's close to signing. Need another 3 weeks. Victor. You're already over schedule. Claire. Worth waiting. Then another exchange from 2 months earlier. Victor. Symptoms? Claire. Headaches, GI, fatigue. He thinks work. Victor. Keep low. Accident later is cleaner. I read it twice. What accident? Dana slid another page toward me. A recovered search history. Brake failure symptoms. Carbon monoxide exposure. Single vehicle fatalities. Life insurance exclusions. I stared at it. Was she planning to kill me before or after the acquisition? Dana didn't answer. We both knew. After. Then she showed me something I hadn't expected. A message about Noah. Victor. Kid complicates estate. Claire. Leave him alone, Victor. Can't guarantee that. Claire. I said no. He's not part of this. I looked at Dana. She protected him. Apparently. That didn't make Claire good, but it mattered to me. Any other messages? Dana hesitated. Then showed me one. Victor. You're getting attached. That's why this assignment is 6 years old. Claire. I'm managing it. Victor. No. You're playing house. I sat back. For the first time, the timeline looked different. Claire was supposed to do what she'd apparently done before. Enter my life. Gain access. Wait. Kill me. Leave. Instead, she'd stayed 6 years. Why? Money explained some of it. Not all. The FBI found Victor first. He tried using a fake passport at Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Bad timing. His alias had already been flagged. Claire wasn't with him. When agents questioned him, he asked for an attorney and said nothing else. But his luggage told a story. Cash, encrypted drives, a phone in a Faraday pouch, and 2 airline reservations to Panama City. One for Victor, one for Natalie Voss, Claire's real name. The second passenger had never arrived. She'd abandoned him. That was interesting. I spent the next 3 nights at Rachel's house. Noah thought Claire was away because of legal problems. I hated lying to him. I hated the truth more. On the 4th night, after Noah fell asleep, my phone rang. Blocked number. I answered. Nothing. Then, Eric. Claire. Every muscle in my body tightened. Where are you? I can't tell you. Police are looking for you. I know. FBI too. I know. Her voice sounded tired. Not scared. Just tired. Why did you call? To tell you Noah was never in danger from me. I stood and walked into Rachel's garage. You poisoned me. Silence. Yes. Hearing her admit it was different from reading messages. You were going to kill me. Another pause. Yes. I leaned against the workbench. How long? Eric. How long? Not when we first met. That wasn't the answer I expected. What? I was supposed to. Supposed to what? Get close to you. Why me? Your company had access Victor wanted. My stomach tightened. Client data? Government subcontractors, banking networks, authentication systems. This wasn't only about my money. Then why marry me? Because access takes time. And Noah? She didn't answer immediately. He wasn't supposed to matter. But he did. Yes. Her voice cracked slightly. First emotion I'd heard? I didn't know whether to believe it. Did you ever love me? She breathed into the phone. I don't know how to answer that in a way you'll believe. Try the truth? I stopped giving Victor what he wanted after the first year. That caught me. What? I gave him basic information. Nothing useful enough to compromise your clients. Why? Because I knew what he'd do with it. You knew before you married me. Yes. So that doesn't explain anything. No. She was quiet, then, you and Noah became real? I closed my eyes. You poisoned me. I know. Real people don't poison each other, Claire. I know. Stop saying that. Silence. Then she said, I started again because Victor threatened Noah. That made me straighten. What? He found out I hadn't completed the job. What job? You. There it was. He said if I didn't finish, he'd handle the entire household. My grip tightened around the phone. So you decided killing me was the compromise? Her breathing became uneven. I thought if you died naturally, he'd leave Noah with your sister. That is insane. I know. Stop. She went silent. I forced myself to lower my voice. Why donate blood? That had bothered me from the beginning. You hate needles. I needed to know whether Victor was lying. About what? Whether the compound was building up in me too. I frowned. You intentionally exposed yourself? Small amounts? Handling it? So you donated blood because you wanted testing without creating a medical record under your name? Yes? But the donation exposed your DNA? I didn't know they were cross-checking samples because of an unrelated federal case. One stupid mistake. After years of false identities, fake records, dead men, and carefully controlled poisoning, Claire had walked voluntarily into a blood center. Turn yourself in, I said. I can't. Victor's in custody. He isn't who I'm afraid of. I stopped. Who? Claire didn't answer. Then I heard something on her end. A car door. Her breathing changed. Claire? Eric, listen carefully. What? Don't go back to the house. I wasn't planning to. Don't go to your office either. Why? They know about the acquisition. Who knows? Another car door slammed. Closer. Claire whispered, Victor wasn't running this. Then the call ended. I tried calling back. Blocked. Nothing. 30 seconds later, a text arrived from an unknown number. A photograph. My office building. Taken at night. Under it, "You have something that belongs to us." Then another photograph arrived. Noah, leaving school 2 days earlier. I called Dana immediately. She answered on the first ring. Before I could explain, she said, "Eric, get Noah away from the windows." My stomach dropped. "How do you know?" "Because somebody just tried to access your company's backup servers using credentials taken from your home computer." "Victor?" "No." "Claire?" "No." I looked toward the living room where Noah was asleep on Rachel's couch. "Then who?" Dana paused. "We traced the login." "To where?" "Your own company." I didn't understand. Then she gave me the employee name, and suddenly I knew why Claire had stayed in my house for 6 years without ever successfully stealing the information Victor wanted. She hadn't been the only person placed in my life. Someone had been sitting inside my company the entire time. The employee's name was Owen Blake. He'd worked for me for almost 5 years. Senior systems engineer. 34. Quiet guy. Divorced. The person I trusted with the infrastructure nobody else was supposed to touch. For a few seconds, I thought Dana had to be wrong. Owen can't access that system remotely. He just did. With what credentials? Yours. That made even less sense. My credentials required a hardware security key, not just a password. The key was attached to my work keychain. I reached into my pocket. Gone. I checked again like it might magically appear. Nothing. Then I remembered Claire bringing me coffee the morning everything started. I'd left my keys beside the kitchen sink while taking a shower. She could have taken the hardware key. But if Claire had it, how did Owen? Unless she'd given it to him. Or someone had copied it. I looked at Dana. What did he access? Backup architecture? Client data? Not yet. That distinction mattered. Our backups were segmented. Knowing where something existed wasn't the same as being able to decrypt it. But Owen knew that, which meant he probably wasn't looking for data. He was looking for a path. Dana had agents outside Rachel's house within 20 minutes. Noah woke up when they arrived. He looked through the window. "Dad, why are police here?" I sat beside him. There wasn't going to be another harmless explanation. Something happened at work. Bad? Yeah. Is Mom okay? That question still got me. I don't know. He looked down. Did she do something? 8 years old. Not stupid. I put my hand on his shoulder. Some adults made choices we're trying to understand. Is she coming home? I couldn't answer that. Noah nodded like my silence was an answer anyway. Then he went upstairs with Rachel. At 1:20 in the morning, Dana called again. Owen had left his apartment. His company phone was off. Personal phone, too. His car was still parked outside. That meant he knew they were looking. How? We don't know. I do. I thought about the company. 43 employees. Security professionals. People who understood logs, warrants, access controls, monitoring. If somebody inside had been working with Victor's organization for years, there was no reason to assume Owen was the only one. Dana, shut down my company. She went quiet. What? Physically. I can't order that based on your request. Then I'll do it. I called my operations director, Sam Whittaker. Sam had been with me since employee number 6. He answered half asleep. Eric? Emergency shutdown. That woke him up. What happened? Assume internal compromise. Silence. How bad? Federal. Another silence. Then, okay. No questions. That's why Sam had been with me 12 years. By 3 in the morning, external client connections were suspended. Administrative accounts locked. backup access isolated. It cost me money immediately. I didn't care. You can explain downtime. You can't explain leaking banking credentials because you didn't want an uncomfortable Monday. At 7:40, Dana asked me to come to the field office. Rachel stayed with Noah. Marcus met me there. Dana had another folder waiting. I was starting to hate folders. The first page was Owen's employment application. Nothing strange. Previous employer, references, certifications. Then Dana placed a second document beside it. A driver's license from Nevada. Same face. Different name, Andrew Vance. I stared at it. You've got to be kidding. No. How many fake people have been living around me? We don't know yet. Andrew Vance had disappeared after a corporate espionage investigation 9 years earlier. No conviction, no arrest. Just gone. Then 5 years later, Owen Blake applied to my company. Dana tapped the timeline. 3 months before he applied, you announced a government cybersecurity contract. I remembered. It had been public. Not the technical details, just the award. So they placed him. Looks that way. Then why did they need Claire? Different access. That made sense. Owen could reach systems. Claire could reach me, my habits, my devices, my home, my trust. 2 separate routes toward the same target. But something still didn't fit. If Owen's been inside for 5 years, why hasn't he stolen everything already? Dana looked at me. That's what we've been asking. Marcus leaned forward. Maybe he couldn't. I shook my head. Owen designed part of our backup architecture. He could have caused damage. Could he extract the protected client data? I thought about it. No. Not without multiple controls. The most sensitive customer archives required separate approvals. Mine, Sam's, and an offline cryptographic token stored in a bank vault. Owen knew that. Then I understood. The acquisition. Dana nodded. What changes if the company sells? Everything. The acquiring company planned to migrate our infrastructure, temporary administrator privileges, data movement, new credentials, old systems running parallel, a transition period, security. People hate transitions because transitions create exceptions. They were waiting for the sale. That's our theory. Claire's notebook suddenly made sense. 11 to 13 projected. I thought she'd been waiting for my payout. Maybe that was only part of it. The acquisition wasn't just when I'd become wealthier. It was when my company's defenses would become temporarily weaker. At 10:30, Sam called. Found something. I put him on speaker. We audited Owen's last 90 days. And? He created a service account. Impossible. Should have been. I didn't like that wording. How? He used your authorization. I didn't authorize anything. I know. Another stolen credential. What could the account do? Almost nothing right now. Right now? Sam paused. It activates during migration. There it was. Owen had built a door that wouldn't open until the acquisition began. Patient. Very patient. What would it access? Everything moving into the staging environment, Dana asked. Including government data? Sam answered carefully. Potentially. Then the office door opened. Paul walked in. He whispered something to Dana. Her expression changed. What? She looked at me. They found Claire. I stood. Where? Emergency room in Durham. What happened? Gunshot wound. For a second, everything else disappeared. Is she alive? Yes. Who shot her? We don't know. Can I see her? Dana hesitated. She asked for you. Claire looked smaller in the hospital bed. There was a bandage high on her left shoulder. 2 agents stood outside. Her wrists weren't restrained. Yet. She looked at me when I entered. You came. Apparently I make questionable decisions. A weak smile appeared, then vanished. Where's Noah? Safe. Her eyes closed briefly. Good. I stayed near the door. What happened? Owen. That wasn't the answer I expected. He shot you? No. He tried. Then who did? I don't know. She shifted and winced. There were two people. Owen and? Woman. Name? I never saw her before. Why were they after you? Claire looked at me. Because I called you. The blocked call. Victor wasn't the only person monitoring her. Where have you been? Cheap motel outside Durham. Under what name? She almost smiled. You don't want to know. Probably true. Then she became serious. Eric, Owen has been inside your company longer than you think. 5 years. No. I frowned. He worked for one of your vendors first. What vendor? Datacore Systems. I knew them. They'd supplied networking hardware during our first major expansion 7 years earlier, before Owen supposedly entered my life. He compromised equipment? I don't know. But Victor talked about him. Victor wasn't in charge. You said that. Claire looked toward the door, then lowered her voice. The woman who is... Her name is Evelyn March. Who is she? I don't know her real name. Useful. Claire ignored that. She recruits people. People like you. Yes. Why? Debt. Criminal records. Family problems. Anything she can use. What did she have on you? Claire looked away. My mother. You told me she died. She didn't. Of course. What happened? She owed people money. What people? Evelyn's people. I stared at her. How old were you? 19. So you started doing this because of your mother? At first. And later? Claire didn't answer. Later she'd stayed because she'd become good at it. That was my guess. She reached toward the bedside table. An agent immediately stepped inside. Claire stopped. There's a flash drive in my coat. Dana entered and retrieved it herself. What is it? Claire looked at me. Insurance. Against Evelyn? Against everyone. Apparently, Claire had spent years copying pieces of Victor's operation. Names, accounts, targets, aliases. Not enough to expose herself without going to prison, too. Enough to protect herself if they ever decided she was expendable. Why didn't you give this to the FBI? Because I didn't trust them. Dana raised an eyebrow. That's flattering. Claire looked directly at her. You shouldn't. The room went quiet. What does that mean? Dana asked. Evelyn has someone inside federal law enforcement. Dana's expression didn't change. Mine did. How do you know? Victor told me years ago. Name? I never knew. Dana took the flash drive. We'll examine it offline. Claire shook her head. No. Dana stopped. Why? Because if you plug it into your system, they'll know. I almost laughed. Even after being shot, Claire was still the most paranoid person in the room. Unfortunately, she'd earned some credibility. Dana brought in a standalone laptop with no network connection. The drive contained hundreds of folders, photographs, bank records, recorded calls, target profiles. Then we found mine. Lawson, Eric created 7 years earlier, before Claire and I met. Inside was a photograph of me leaving my old office, another of Noah and me at a grocery store. Noah was barely 1. Then a document. Primary route, domestic placement. Below it, secondary route, technical placement. Claire was the domestic placement. Owen was technical. I kept scrolling. Financial projections, daily routine, family information. Then I found Melissa, Noah's biological mother. There were photographs of her too. Hospital records, surgery schedule, insurance information. I stopped. Why is Melissa in here? Nobody answered. Claire looked genuinely confused. What? I turned the screen toward her. The color left her face. I've never seen that. Melissa had died before I met Claire, almost a year before. Dana started reading. Then she went very still. One note was dated 4 days before Melissa's surgery. If spouse remains primary decision maker, domestic placement unlikely to succeed. Another note, 2 days later. Medical event creates cleaner access path. I couldn't hear anything for a few seconds. What medical event? Dana didn't answer. I already knew what the words were suggesting. No. Marcus put a hand on my arm. I pulled away. Melissa died from surgical complications. Dana closed the laptop. We don't know that this document refers to her death. It's in her file. We need evidence. I looked at Claire. Did you know? No. Did Victor? I don't know. Did Evelyn? Claire whispered. Probably. That was the moment the last 7 years rearranged themselves in my head. Claire hadn't entered my life because my wife died. Maybe my wife had died because someone needed Claire to enter my life. Dana's phone rang. She stepped into the hallway. 30 seconds later, she came back. We found Owen. Alive? Yes. Where? Your office. I frowned. The building is shut down. He got inside. Why? Dana looked at me. He isn't trying to steal data anymore. What is he doing? He's in the server room. My stomach tightened. Doing what? Agents saw him carrying 2 fuel containers. I stood immediately. He's going to burn it. Dana nodded. Looks that way. The drive in her hand suddenly mattered even more. If Owen couldn't steal what he wanted, he was destroying evidence. Then Claire said quietly, No. Everyone looked at her. He isn't destroying evidence. How do you know? I asked. Because Evelyn doesn't destroy valuable systems. What does she do? Claire's eyes stayed on mine. She destroys the people who can explain them. I felt cold. Sam. I pulled out my phone. My operations director. Employee number 6. The man I'd called to shut everything down. The man currently supervising the emergency response from inside the building. I called. No answer. Again. Nothing. Then a text arrived from Sam's number. Found Owen downstairs. Going to talk to him. I stared at it. Sent 18 minutes earlier. Dana was already calling agents at the scene. Then another message appeared. Not from Sam. Unknown number. A photograph loaded. Sam was sitting on the floor of my server room. Hands bound behind his back. Owen stood beside him. And behind Owen was a woman I'd never seen before. Gray hair, dark coat, calm smile. Claire looked at the picture. Her face changed instantly. That's her. Evelyn? Claire nodded. Then my phone rang, Sam's number. I answered. A woman's voice said, Eric, I think it's time you and I finally met. And somewhere behind her, I heard Sam say, Don't come here. Then the line went dead. I didn't go to the office. Every instinct I had was telling me to get in my car, drive there, and do something. Dana stopped that quickly. If Evelyn wants you there, you don't go. She has Sam. I know. He's there because I called him, and walking into a hostage situation won't fix that. I hated that she was right. Claire was still in the hospital bed watching us. Then she said, Evelyn doesn't want Eric dead yet. Dana looked at her. Why? Because she needs him. For the encryption? Claire nodded. I understood. The acquisition wasn't complete. The migration hadn't started. Even Owen couldn't get through every layer protecting our most sensitive client archives. They still needed my approval. More specifically, they needed my hardware credentials and the offline token, and Evelyn apparently believed threatening Sam would get them. She wasn't completely wrong. My phone rang again. Sam's number. Dana motioned for me to answer and put it on speaker. Evelyn sounded relaxed. Eric, let Sam go. You haven't even asked what I want. I know what you want. Do you? The migration credentials. A small laugh. You're smarter than Victor said? Victor's in custody. I know. No concern. That told me everything about their relationship. Victor had been useful. Now he wasn't. Sam has nothing you need. He has you. I looked at Dana. She was writing something. What happens if I say no? Evelyn didn't answer immediately. Then I heard Sam breathe sharply. Eric, he said. Don't give her anything, Evelyn sighed. Your employees are very loyal. He's my friend. That's usually how access works. That sentence hit harder than she intended. Claire, Owen, maybe even Melissa. My entire life had been treated as an access control problem. Find the trusted person. Use them. What do you want me to do? Dana looked at me sharply. I ignored her. Evelyn said, Bring your authentication key. I don't have it. Owen does. That surprised me. So Claire had gotten it to him before disappearing. What do you need from me? Your biometric authorization. There it was. The final layer. Some migration functions required my fingerprint, plus a rotating credential stored on a separate token. You're not getting it. Then Sam becomes unnecessary. The line went quiet. I heard movement. Then Sam said, Eric, listen to me. Evelyn didn't stop him. Burn the company before you give them access. I almost smiled. That sounded exactly like Sam. Employee number 6. 12 years. The guy who once slept under his desk during a ransomware incident because he refused to leave before a client was restored. Evelyn said, touching, then disconnected. Dana's team was already inside the building, not the server room. Owen had locked down the lower level and disabled several internal cameras. But he hadn't disabled everything. Our security systems were designed by paranoid people, including me. Sam had installed an independent environmental monitoring network after an air conditioning failure 3 years earlier. Temperature, humidity, smoke, water. It wasn't connected to our primary infrastructure. I logged into it from Dana's laptop. Server room temperature, 71 degrees, no smoke. So the fuel containers weren't being used yet. Then I noticed something else. Loading dock sensor. Open. Closed. Open again. Someone else was moving through the building. Dana radioed the tactical team. 2 minutes later, they found a rear service door unlocked. Evelyn had an exit route. Of course she did. Claire suddenly said, She'll leave Owen. I looked at her. What? If police get close, she'll leave him. How do you know? Because she always leaves someone. Victor, Owen, Claire herself. People weren't partners to Evelyn. They were insulation. Layers between her and consequences. Then Sam? Claire looked away. He's evidence. That was enough. Dana stepped into the hallway and started issuing instructions. The standoff lasted 43 minutes. It felt like 4 hours. At 6:18, smoke appeared on the environmental system. Not the server room. Record storage. Owen had started a fire on the opposite side of the building. Distraction. Sprinklers activated. Fire alarms started. The tactical team moved. Then everything happened quickly. Owen tried leaving through the loading dock. Agents arrested him. He was alone. Evelyn had already moved. Sam was found inside the server room, still tied up, but alive. His face was bruised. Nothing worse. I didn't realize how tense I'd been until Dana told me that. I sat down. For maybe 30 seconds, I couldn't say anything. They didn't find Evelyn. Not in the building. Not outside. But they found blood near the service stairwell. then a jacket, gray. The same one from the photograph. Apparently Sam had fought back before they restrained him and managed to cut her arm with a broken piece of equipment. It wasn't much. It was enough. DNA. For the first time, investigators had biological evidence they could compare against decades of aliases. Owen started talking the following morning. Not because he suddenly developed a conscience, because Evelyn abandoned him. Loyalty gets fragile when somebody leaves you carrying 2 gasoline cans during a federal raid. His real name wasn't Andrew Vance either. That identity was stolen. His name was Peter Mallory. He'd been recruited 12 years earlier, after being arrested for financial fraud in Nevada. Evelyn made the charges disappear through connections Owen never fully understood. After that, he belonged to her. He admitted joining my company intentionally. He admitted building the dormant migration account. He admitted stealing my hardware key after Claire passed it to Victor. But then Dana asked him about Melissa. That's where his cooperation became useful. He knew her name. Melissa had never been a target because of anything she'd done. She was an obstacle. 7 years earlier, Evelyn's organization wanted access to my company because we'd started handling authentication systems for financial institutions. They researched me, my marriage, our finances, my routines. Then Melissa went into the hospital for a routine surgical procedure. According to Owen, Evelyn already had someone working for a medical supplier servicing that hospital. Nobody could prove they'd caused Melissa's death intentionally. Not completely. But investigators discovered her medication records had been altered the night before surgery. One dosage changed, then changed back after her death. The account used belonged to a hospital employee who denied making either change. That employee had died 3 years earlier. So, there would never be a clean answer. I had to accept that. I still hate it. There are questions you don't solve. You just stop allowing them to control every day afterward. Claire turned herself in 2 days after leaving the hospital. She didn't get to go home. There wasn't really a home for her anymore. She was charged under her real identity, Natalie Voss, with multiple offenses tied to fraud, identity documents, unauthorized computer access, and poisoning me. Her cooperation reduced what could have been much worse. The evidence on her flash drive helped authorities identify 14 people connected to Evelyn's network. Some were willing participants, others had been coerced. A few had no idea what they'd been helping. Victor eventually cooperated too. Apparently, prison changes people's definition of loyalty. Evelyn was arrested 6 weeks later. Not in some dramatic raid. She was sitting in a rental car outside a motel near Richmond. A traffic camera caught the plate. The rental identity was fake. The credit card wasn't. One tiny mistake after decades of avoiding consequences. That's usually how these things end. Not because investigators suddenly become geniuses, because maintaining 20 lies forever is harder than telling one truth. My company survived. Barely. We lost the acquisition. Oh, once the investigation became public, the buyer walked away. Several clients left too. I couldn't blame them. If I were responsible for protecting millions of people's financial information and discovered the founder had unknowingly married someone connected to an espionage network, I'd probably have questions. Sam stayed. So did 36 of our 43 employees. We rebuilt almost everything. New infrastructure, new hardware, new authentication, new offices. We even replaced furniture from areas investigators had torn apart. For 6 months, my life was basically meetings, lawyers, security audits, and explaining to Noah why Claire wasn't coming home. That last one was the hardest. I didn't tell him everything. He was 8. He didn't need to know that the woman he'd called Mom had entered our lives under orders from people who might have played a role in his biological mother's death. I told him Claire had done serious things and had to face consequences. He cried. Then he asked whether she loved him. I didn't know, but I remembered those messages. Kid complicates estate. Leave him alone. Whatever else Claire had been, whatever she'd done to me, there had been one line she refused to cross. So I told Noah, yes. I think she did. Maybe that was too generous. Maybe it wasn't. Children deserve the truth, but they don't always need every piece of it at once. Claire wrote to Noah from custody. Every month. I read every letter first. She never defended herself. Never asked him to convince me of anything. Mostly she asked about school, soccer, books, Cooper, and whether he was still afraid of thunderstorms. For almost a year, I didn't respond. Then Noah asked if he could write back. I let him. That decision upset Rachel. Marcus understood it. I didn't care whether anyone approved. Claire had lost the right to be his mother in every practical sense, but Noah hadn't lost the right to decide what she meant to him. I saw Claire once before sentencing. Her attorney requested the meeting. I almost refused. Then I went. She looked different with her natural dark hair growing back. For the first time, she looked like Natalie from the FBI photographs. She sat across the table. No touching, no dramatic reunion. Is Noah okay? Yes. Does he hate me? No. That made her cry. Quietly. I waited. Then she asked, do you? I thought about it. No. She looked surprised. I don't understand. I don't either. That was true. I hated things she'd done. I hated that she'd poisoned me. Hated every fake name, every stolen password, every morning I'd woken beside someone whose history I didn't actually know. But hatred would have required me to keep building my life around her. I was tired of doing that. Was any of it real? I asked. She knew what I meant. Most of it. I almost laughed. That isn't a very reassuring answer. I know. She smiled slightly. Then her face changed. When I met you, no. When I married you, partly. And later? You and Noah became the only real thing I had? I looked at her. Then you poisoned me. Tears filled her eyes. Yes. There was no explanation that could survive that sentence. So neither of us tried. Claire received a long prison sentence. Victor received longer. Owen cooperated enough to reduce his. Evelyn went to trial. The prosecution connected her organization to fraud, corporate espionage, extortion, identity theft, and several suspicious deaths. Melissa's death remained officially unresolved. I learned to live with that word, unresolved. Not everything becomes neat because a story reaches its ending. 3 years later, Noah and I moved. Not far. Different house, different neighborhood. He wanted a place with a bigger backyard. I wanted a house without hidden compartments, keyloggers, federal evidence stickers, or memories attached to every room. The company recovered too. Smaller than before, better controlled. Sam became my partner. He jokes that getting tied up in a server room was the world's worst equity negotiation. That's about as emotional as either of us gets discussing it. Every once in a while, someone asks how I didn't know Claire wasn't who she said she was. There isn't a satisfying answer. People imagine deception requires constant acting. It doesn't. The best lies attach themselves to ordinary truth. Claire really did hate needles. She really did know how Noah liked his grilled cheese cut. She really did complain when I left socks beside the bed. She also had 4 identities and a plan that once ended with me dead. Both things were true. That's what took me longest to understand. The person who hurts you doesn't have to be pretending every second. Sometimes they laugh at your jokes because they're actually funny. Sometimes they remember your birthday because they genuinely care. Sometimes they make your coffee exactly the way you like it. And sometimes that's the cup you shouldn't drink.